Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're continuing our series on spellcasting in the Player's Handbook. And today we're starting a brand new class, the Cleric. Clerics are one of those fun classes which have a very strong reputation for doing one thing, but in reality, they are one of the most versatile classes in all of D&D. They're known for their healing and their support magic, but they also make pretty good damage dealers, decent frontline tanks. They actually do a pretty good job in most forms of magic. There's some battlefield control, there's some utility and social manipulation. It's all built into this kind of jack-of-all-trades package which premieres with healing and support, but can do a lot of stuff. And today we're talking about the bread and butter of all casters, cantrips. Cantrips are those free spells that you get a couple of them and you can cast them at will. No need to burn your magical spell slots, no need to use your energy. You can use them infinitely. So it's good to make sure that you pick some good ones. For the Cleric, I've made a top 5 list of 2 damage dealing spells, 2 combat spells, and 2 utility spells, as well as an honorable mention. I try my best to encourage folks to split their spell casting between damage dealing and utility, so I try to make sure that there's a good recommendation for both sides as we continue down this series. And yeah, let's get into it. But before we do, I'd like to let you know, Relaxed Fantasy Review has memberships. For just $1 a month, you can support me here on YouTube and get a couple benefits. You get a badge next to your name in the comments, letting folks know you're a supporter. You get early access to my videos a day before everyone else, and you get VIP access in my community Discord so you can talk directly to me. If any of that sounds interesting to you, you can click the join button just down there next to the subscribe button. And if it doesn't interest you, that's fine as well. Anyone can join Relaxed Fantasy Review's Discord. There's links in the videos and channel descriptions. And honestly, just being here, watching the video, liking and subscribing to the channel are all wonderful ways to support me. So thank you for watching my content here on YouTube. Let's start off with the utility spell. Number 2 on my list is Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy is one of those spells that is part of the utility trifecta: Prestidigitation, Druidcraft, and Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy just happens to be the divine magic version of this. And it allows you to manifest minor wonders. You can change the way your eyes look, make your voice boom, make windows shutters open and shut, or cause doors to slam. You can even cause harmless tremors in the earth. Now, it is very specific in the spell that none of these things can cause harm to people, but there's a lot of creative uses with Thaumaturgy. You can even make flames jump and change color and shape, making it appear so that there is a god speaking. I've heard of players using Thaumaturgy to scare goblins and kobolds by casting it into a campfire. Interestingly, in the new Player's Handbook, there is actually a mechanical benefit written into Thaumaturgy that wasn't there before. When you use it to make your voice boom, you have advantage on your intimidation checks. And to be fair, I did that anyway. I would use it to make it so that it sounded scary. Now it's just written in the spell. So there is a legitimate mechanical benefit that even the DM can't really argue with unless they want to argue with what's written in the book. So yeah, I think Thaumaturgy is a great spell, fun and flavorful, and I give it the number 2 spot on the utility list. Now on the combat list, I've got a bit of a hot take. There's a spell here which is not well liked amongst the community. It's generally considered undercooked, and it is Word of Radiance. I think Word of Radiance deserves a second look. What I've done is I thought about it from a combat perspective. A lot of the time, clerics are wearing medium or heavy armor. They often carry a shield. It's relatively normal for them to have an AC in the upper teens, maybe even 20 if they can get themselves plate armor. Not to mention if they get magic armor of some kind. Now, they can't use, the shield spell, so they're not impervious to damage, and their D8 hit die does leave a little bit to be desired, but that high armor class means that they can at least survive on the front lines. They don't do bad as a frontliner, they just need someone a little tankier than them to back them up usually. I've seen parties where the cleric is the tank, standing right next to the paladin with a high constitution and a high armor class. Word of Radiance is a great spell because all it takes is 2 targets. See, most cantrips do between a d6 and a d12 of damage, depending on the situation. Word of Radiance is on the low end of that. You cast it as an action. It has a 5-foot emanation from you, so it only attacks creatures that are right next to you. And they get to make a Constitution save, which is a tough save to target. But let's not forget that every save has a chance of being failed, and if you're fighting against minions and other small creatures that might rush you, then their Constitution is probably not that much better than their other stats. And if they fail the save, they take a d6 of radiant damage. If there are 2 of them that take this damage, that is 2d6, more than any single target cantrip does in the whole game. Obviously, this may not always be the case. There may only be 1 enemy next to you, or multiple enemies might succeed their saving throw, but that could happen with any cantrip. There is no cantrip that by itself does half damage on a success for a saving throw. So I think that it bears talking about the fact that all you have to have is 2 enemies next to you, and Word of Radiance can deal more damage than any other cantrip. And 2 enemies is not that hard to get next to when you're wearing heavy armor and carrying a shield. I think Word of Radiance is a very solid damage-dealing spell when you're playing that kind of cleric. If you're wearing medium armor, you don't have high dexterity, you aren't carrying a shield, if your AC is not great, maybe your Constitution isn't great either, then I can understand not wanting to be on the front lines. But if you're a War Domain cleric carrying plate and a shield and you run up to the front line and you cast Word of Radiance because you don't have a strong weapon, or maybe you've dedicated yourself to casting, then genuinely this could be your ticket to high levels of damage. The scaling goes up per enemy, meaning that at level 5, when you have Word of Radiance, it does 2d6 per enemy failed save. That's 2 enemies on the front line. That is 4d6 of damage. That's a lot. That is as much as a fighter would be doing with their greatsword if they attack twice, minus their ability score modifier. Although there are ways to get that. Later on in the Cleric's campaign, you can add your wisdom modifier to the damage of cantrips. And it doesn't say to 1 damage. If you use an AoE cantrip, like Word of Radiance, you can add it multiple times. I mean, that's Eldritch Blast levels of damage. All in all, this is all my justification for saying that I want to give Word of Radiance the number 2 spot. It's not the best damage-dealing cantrip on the Cleric's list, but I think it deserves talking about. And I think that, you know, minus the Constitution save, I don't hate this spell at all. Alright, before we get to the number 1 spells, I'm going to talk about my honorable mention, and this is Spare the Dying. Spare the Dying is a combat spell, primarily, and it works like this. You cast it as an action, it has a range of 15 feet, and you target a creature, usually an ally, that has 0 hit points and isn't dead. So this is a creature making death saves. You cast the spell and they are automatically stabilized. They stop making death saves, they become stable and unconscious, and then, you know, they are treated as if they had succeeded all 3 of their death saves, and you have to wait for them to wake up, or you can heal them afterwards. It's a good way to stop an ally from dying when you don't have another way to heal them. Now, I will say that in the past I've been pretty harsh on this spell, because it used to have a range of touch, and I used to say that there was like multiple other things you could be doing. There's obviously healing spells. If you have a spell slot, casting Healing Word to get your ally back in the battle is a better decision. Plus it has range. If you have a healing potion, those can also be used with a bonus action, and you can run over and pour those down an ally's throat. And if you don't want to use a cantrip slot on this, the medicine skill. All it takes is a DC 10 medicine check, which is a wisdom-based skill, which clerics are great at, that can do the exact same thing as Spare the Dying with an action, but you have to be touching someone. This is why I actually like Spare the Dying as my honorable mention now, because not only does it have a range, so you can cast it without rushing up to a friend, potentially taking an opportunity attack or 3, now you can do it from 15 feet away, and as it scales, it actually scales. It's not the ability, you don't like restore hit points with it or anything, but what you do is you do it from further away. the range doubles every time the cantrip scales, going up to 30, 60, and at the high levels of play, 120 feet. This spell isn't the best in the game by any means, but it has improved. The ability to do it at range has taken it from a spell that I normally would not take to one that I would consider if I needed, a healing cantrip. If I needed something, I knew I was playing in a high attrition game, I knew I wasn't going to have all the healing potions and healing spells I wanted, I would want Spare the Dying to keep people alive. I think that it's a solid pick. So I'm giving it my honorable mention. In the meantime, to our number 1 spells. Number 1 on my combat list, and you may, not be surprised at this one, it's Toll the Dead. Toll the Dead is a single target attack spell. You cast it as an action, has a range of 60 feet. The creature that you target makes a wisdom save. If they fail to save, they take a d8 of damage. It's necrotic damage, which is a great damage type. Not many creatures resist necrotic. And what's best about it is that if you target a creature that has already taken damage, so they aren't at their full hit points, then they take a d12 of damage, the highest damage dealing cantrip in a vacuum. I mean, Poison Spray does the same thing, which actually uses an attack roll, but it only has a range of 30 feet, and it does poison damage, which is regularly something enemies have immunity to. This is a d12 at 60 feet, targets a saving throw, and does necrotic damage. Wisdom saves are decent to target, and as it scales, it continues adding d12s. At level 5, it is 2d12 damage. That is an average of 13 damage with a cantrip. Even at level 5, that's a solid hit, especially if you've got a concentration spell going. A classic cleric setup is to be using Spirit Guardians, running around the battlefield, tagging creatures with your radiant damage from that, and then using Toll the Dead as your action to hit people with your extra damage using that. It's a solid choice. It's not the best tactic in the world for clerics, but as cantrips go, this is about as good as it gets. Obviously, if you're surrounded, Word of Radiance will probably do more damage, but this is more reliable. Wisdom saves are way more reliable than con saves. So yeah, I'm giving Toll the Dead the number 1 spot. It is my go-to damaging spell when I'm playing a cleric. And lots of other classes too. Clerics aren't the only ones that get it. However, one of the things that clerics are pretty well known for is the number 1 on their utility list, and this is probably their number 1 spell overall, Guidance. You know it, you love it. Guidance is one of those spells that just everyone appreciates because it genuinely can make the game easier for everyone. If you've played Baldur's Gate 3, you probably know about Guidance because it is one of the most common spells used to pass your skill checks. It doesn't quite work in D&D like it does in BG3, I will say, because it's not cast as a reaction. You have to cast it as an action. You cast it as an action, you touch a creature, and the spell lasts for a minute with your concentration, so you won't be doing this in combat, usually. But you touch your ally, or yourself, it can be yourself, and as long as you're concentrating, you choose a skill. You choose one of your skill checks, and for the next minute, or as long as you keep concentration, you can add a d4 to those skill checks. What that means is that you are buffing it by an average of 2.5. Even if you round that down, a +2 to an ability check is actually pretty big. Like, consider that the average ability check ranges between like DC 10 and DC 20 for easy to hard. Obviously, there are bigger ones and lower ones, and that's a DM's call. I've heard of DMs in the higher levels of play that will send it up to 30. But the point is that even on that kind of scale, your character has a d20 to roll. They've got their ability modifier. Adding an extra 2 or 3 can absolutely be the difference between success and failure. And Guidance works for the whole minute. So if a character is stealthing, and you know they're going to be stealthing for the next minute, casting Guidance on them means they can actually make the roll multiple times, as long as they're doing it within a minute. It's the same with things like Persuasion, Perception, any ability check that you need to do that is going to be crucial. Guidance can really save the day. It is 100% the best cantrip that clerics can take. If any class can take it, they should. And yeah, it's really hard to overstate how good this spell is, considering you can cast it infinitely. You can cast it every single turn if you want to. Keep in mind your concentration can only have one instance of it going at a time, but still, very, very good spell. And that's it. If you are a brand new cleric and you aren't sure which cantrips to pick, I recommend grab Guidance and Toll the Dead. Those are the two best ones that you can grab. If you want to focus on healing because you know you're in a brutal campaign, grab Spare the Dying. If you know that you're going to be a bit of a frontliner because you're one of the heavily armored individuals, Ward of Radiance could be good. And if you need another good utility spell for creativity and utility play and puzzle solving and stuff, Thaumaturgy is a great pickup. All in all of these spells, you can't really go wrong with them. I think that, I really hope that this helps. If you are new to playing a cleric, I promise, clerics can do a lot of fun stuff, and these cantrips are just the start of this spellcasting journey. So thanks for watching. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there, and keep your eyes peeled for more spellcasting reviews coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.